Typically on our channel, we tend to build high-end PC builds for display purposes only. That is what makes us so unique. We also get a lot of requests to actually benchmark these PCs and see how they perform. And of course, a lot of comments like these. So with that being said, it is time to change up our strategy a bit. Meet our $3,000 Lian Li O11 Dynamic PC build, a fully liquid-cooled gaming system. But how does this 4K beast actually perform? So today our test rig contains the Asus Maximus 10 Formula motherboard, 16 gigs of T-Force Delta RGB memory running at 3000 MHz, a 480GB M.2 SSD, and a Seasonic Snow Silent 750 watt titanium rated power supply. The CPU we chose is very good for gaming. It is the Intel Core i5-8600K. Being the K variant, it allows us to overclock the CPU to achieve more performance without actually spending $1 more. This CPU has 6 cores and 6 threads, a base clock of 3.6 GHz, and a boost clock of 4.3 GHz. For our testing, we did apply a small overclock of 4.5 GHz to all cores. Now this can be pushed a lot further and you guys will see that in our testing. Our GPU is the Asus GTX 1070 Ti Strix, a very good gaming card capable of 4K gaming. It has 8GB of GDDR5 memory, a base clock of 1607 MHz, and a boost clock of 1683 MHz. We will be testing both on stock speeds on this card, and we will be applying an overclock to actually see how much performance gain we can get without spending a single dollar more. Our monitor we will be testing on is the Asus PG278Q, a 1440p monitor with a 144Hz refresh rate. All tests are performed in a controlled environment with the ambient temperature being 30 degrees Celsius. Each benchmark will be ran at a minimum of 3 times each, both at 1440p and 1080p. At the time of this video, the latest NVIDIA drivers were used, version 417.35. One final thing that I would like to mention is this system would actually cost a little under $2,000 without all of the water cooling gear inside. So if you wanted to keep it on air, you would be looking at around $1,900. Our first test is Heaven Benchmark. We tested this at 1080p with all settings maxed out and at Ultra. We repeated this run 3 times and each run was smooth and achieved similar results. We upped the power limit to 120, set the core clock at +250 and the memory clock to +450. This increase saw an 11% increase in performance, pretty much matching a GTX 1080. Next, we tested in 1440p. Heaven is much more demanding on the GPU than your average game. It is designed to specifically see how your GPU can handle the stress. On stock settings, again, we ran 3 passes and saw similar results. A respectable 74 FPS, and again, with the same overclock profile, we saw an 11.5% increase in performance. With DX12 released, we wanted to test our system in a DX12 title. We decided to run a TimeSpy on this system to see how it performed. Now, TimeSpy is extremely demanding on the PC and it does not reflect real-world game FPS. So what you will see on screen is probably lower results than you would expect. However, this is a good indication of where your PC lies compared to other people who have actually ran this test as well. Our test was ran at 1440p with and without the overclocking profile applied. Our 3 runs resulted in similar scores. With no overclock, we sat just shy of a 4K gaming PC, better than 64% of all results. Applying our overclocking settings increases our performance by 9.6% and pushes our PC up above the 4K gaming PC bracket. We also wanted to test some DX11, so we stressed our PC in Firestrike at 1440p, both with an overclock and with a non-overclock. With stock GPU settings applied, we managed to score a 15,932, putting us better than 83% of all results. Our overclock was applied and we managed to get a 7.3% increase in performance. Cinebench was our next task at hand. We wanted to see how the CPU actually performed because there are a lot of people who don't think the i5 is quite capable in today's day and age. We ran 4 passes achieving very similar results, and we even managed to match the performance of a 4-core 8-thread i7 4770K at 4.4 GHz. Time for some real-world game comparisons, and I know these are the ones that you guys were looking forward to. We loaded up some Fortnite with our overclocking settings applied and tested at both 1080p and 1440p. For some strange reason, our FPS counter was half cut off. However, there is an FPS counter in the top right-hand corner near the map. In 1080p, walking this straight path, we achieved an average of a 108 FPS. Of course, depending where you are, will vary the results, so we tried to walk the same path in 1440p. Walking straight allowed our GPU to render the same frames, and we achieved an average of 96 FPS. Please note all settings were maxed out in both runs and the screen was filmed instead of recording from the PC, so we did not impact performance in any way. Our second game was PUBG. The textures in this game are more demanding than Fortnite. Again, we set all settings to Ultra and tried to run the exact same path in both 1080p and 1440p to allow the GPU to render the same frames. We achieved an average of 69 FPS in 1080p, and our 1440p looked to be very similar to our 1080p run. However, the average was 63 FPS. This may not look like much, however, the scaling is very similar to Fortnite. Our final game tested was Rainbow Six Siege. We were trying to test the same way we did with Fortnite and PUBG, however, due to this being a very small map, the enemy would eliminate us before we could pull off the 2 passes. Luckily for us, Rainbow Six Siege has its own in-game benchmarks. At 1080p max settings, we were witnessing very impressive results. These results were very similar to what I was achieving in-game. Our average result came in at 186.66 FPS. At 1440p ultra settings, we were still getting amazing results. We achieved an average of 151.48 FPS. So what can we conclude from these results? This build is capable of running most games at 4K 60 FPS. By overclocking this system, we actually achieved results of that of a stock 1080 graphics card, and we didn't even have to pay a cent more. Throughout this whole process, I was monitoring the temperatures on both the CPU and the GPU. The ambient temperature in the room was 30 degrees. It was a controlled 30 degrees, and I did mention this back at the beginning of the video. The GPU maxed out at only 47 degrees. So there's so much more room to overclock this GPU, and we were nowhere near its limits. The CPU maxed out at 63 degrees. Again, there is plenty more room to play with here. Both pieces of hardware were cooled by a single slim 360mm radiator, so it's obviously doing its job very well. I left the CPU voltage at stock with the 4.5 GHz overclock, and the GPU certainly has a lot more juice to squeeze out of it, especially at only 47 degrees under 100% load. So guys, I hope this video cleared up a few things for you guys. The i5 is quite a capable CPU when it comes to gaming, and you don't have to have the latest high-end hardware to actually be able to play games at higher resolutions than even 1080p. You know, 1440p, we were getting some amazing results. This PC right here is capable of 4K gaming, so if you guys apply a little bit of an overclock profile to it, you'll be getting amazing results. We got the results of a GTX 1080 system, and we saved money by doing that. Anyway guys, I hope this video was proof enough for you. Guys, I'll leave all these specs in the description if you guys want to go check them out. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed this, please do let me know in the comments. This is pretty much our first proper benchmarking PC guide thing that we have done on the channel. So if you guys do like this, then perhaps whenever we build a PC, we can continue to do these benchmarking results. Now, of course, this is my very first video, so there is a few things that I want to change coming up. I do want to get a capture card so that the PC is not actually affected when capturing the footage, and that way the footage is not coming from the camera, so it's going to be a lot more clearer. Anyway, guys, specs in the description below. Leave a like, subscribe if you enjoyed, and visit our Patreon if you guys want to consider supporting us. $1 a month helps us out a lot. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you all in the next one.